What's up, guys? In today's video, we're going to talk about how to measure progress during a contest prep. When in a contest prep, obviously you want to make sure that you're making progress so that you could be ready for your show. Kind of a no-brainer, but there's different methods and different times to use those methods during a contest prep. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. So at the very beginning, let's go ahead and break down the different methods to measure progress. The first one, I would say, would be the scale. Second one would be visual changes. And the third one would be measurements. And those measurements could be like body fat testing, physical measurements of, waist, chest, legs, etc. So that's the last one. Now, that's not necessarily in order, but let's get into the order that I would personally use them during a contest prep. Now, for example, I'm going to use Patrick Mabe, one of my clients. Many of you guys who follow me know who Patrick is. He's the National Sales Director of Core Nutritional, so I feel like it's going to be very relatable. He is going through a contest prep currently. When Pat started his prep, his weight did not change all that much. And I told Pat, we were a little bit frustrated, both of us, as a matter of fact, that his weight wasn't moving. And I said, at the beginning of a prep, we do have to focus a little bit more on the scale to make sure that we are getting in a deficit. Now, sure, you might have that first week where you get rid of a little bit of water weight and you may look a little better. But during the first phase of contest prep, I really focus mostly on the scale to make sure we are getting into that deficit. As the prep goes along, and this is kind of where we're at right now, we're in phase 2 of contest prep with Pat. I'm starting to rely a little bit more on pictures. And by relying a little bit more on pictures, I think right now I have him sending me pictures every other week. So I'm not, evaluating him on a week-to-week basis. I still am, obviously looking at his weights, both as a average and as a new low weight. So I do take that into consideration. But I'm also taking into consideration, the average and then how he looks on a bi-weekly rate. So obviously, I compare those pictures. He sends me posing videos, and I evaluate him on how he looks in phase 2. Now, some people, and Pat's not one of them, they do take their body fat measures. Now, I do have one guy who takes his body fat measures, and I don't really pay all that much attention to it just because body fat measures can be very, very off. Now, if someone, and I do have someone who does this, it's a lady, she's used to taking her measurements, and I said, okay, that's fine. We can definitely track progress by measurements as well. She sends me her measurements on a weekly basis, and I look at them, as a kind of a 10,000 foot view to see if everything's coming down. Not a lot of people take their measurements just because, things can get, larger, smaller depending on how you measure it, where you actually put it. So as far as like the body fat and the physical tape measurements, I really don't rely on because there's a lot of error that goes in with that. Now, if you weigh yourself on the same scale every single week, every single day, that's going to be a lot more reliable. It's going to give me enough information to evaluate that, and accompanied with pictures is going to be very, very helpful to help gauge progress. Now, as prep gets into the last phase, the very, very last phase, so we're not quite there yet with Pat. He's going to be competing here in September, so we still have a ways away. So he's competing September, October. So during that phase, let's say at the end of August and especially through September and October, I'm going to be asking for pictures on a weekly basis. So yes, I am still going to look at his weights, of course, because the more information I can gather, the better. But during that time, I'm going to rely more heavily on making my decisions based off of look rather than weight. Now, yes, if we definitely know that we need to lose a little bit more fat, I definitely want to see that scale come down. So I always keep that in the back of my head. But as prep goes on, the weight distribution of where I hold the most value changes. So at the beginning of contest prep, like I said, usually I hold the scale weight a little bit more of a level of importance, and pictures, not so much. And as we go through contest prep, that's going to shift, especially towards the end. Especially towards the end, and especially during peak week, I could really care less what the weight's doing. I really care, how you're looking, especially the day of the show. So it's kind of an inverse reaction, as time goes on, pictures start to become more important. As time goes on, weight starts to become less important. So those are the ways that I personally measure someone's contest prep. I don't necessarily rely on physical measures, like I said, like the tape measure or body fat measure, just because those can be so inaccurate. I really don't pay all that much attention to them. I do pay attention to the scale, and especially towards the end or the second half of a contest prep, you should be paying more attention to your physical pictures. I do want to finish with this. I think a lot of people get caught up in the scale, and I was guilty of this myself in the past, is chasing a number on the scale. And yes, if you are an experienced competitor, and Pat's competed before, so we roughly know what his contest prep weight was in the past, but we don't know what it's going to be. It's been 5 years since Pat's competed, give or take. So obviously his stage weight's going to be different. So we based his potential stage weight off of what he was, added a handful of pounds obviously, but that's going to be very different. So you can't get caught up in chasing a number on the scale. Pat, I believe, competed last at 180 pounds. Right now he's weighing 193. I just saw it today that he had a new low weight. And I don't know if he's going to lose an extra 13 pounds. Time will tell, but I sincerely doubt it. So if we get caught up in trying to get to, 180, a sub 180, we might end up losing too much tissue. So guys, don't get caught up in just focusing on one measure. You have to take in all the measures into consideration during your next contest prep. As always, keep dominating every aspect. I'll see you soon.